Okay, I think I'm ready. Alrighty. Welcome to session number 121 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. Today we are in chapter 15, entitled The Holy Instant. Right? And within that chapter we are in section 6, Roman numeral 6. And that is entitled The Holy Instant and the Laws of God. Holy Instant and the Laws of God. Okay. Remember that the Holy Instant is that moment when we go within, right, as Jesus will call it later on, the stately calm within. We go into the mind where the memory of who you are resides. It is always there, waiting to rise up. Right? And in that active willingness to remember, we go in to the mind, and that is the holy instant. And then Jesus will also speak of like a larger holy instant, when all of a sudden you have those wonderful moments where you understand beyond words. All right, and just one more comment. He's been talking about the phrase special relationships. All right, that's when I perceive needs that I have and that you can fulfill those needs. Or like something that I'm lacking, you have. I want it. I'll get it somehow. Things like that. And it can be, they can look like they're benign and very, very nice, or not. Okay, but it's a perceived need that I have. And that, all this comes from the original special relationship that I formed as one Son of God. Right before the Son of God decided to project out of the mind, or thought that he could project out of the mind, and burst into billions of pieces as if he was hiding among the trees. Right? The first special relationship was with that ego thought system, where I thought I could be an individual. I thought that's my need. Right? I need to be an individual. I need to be out of here. There's something perturbing about this oneness stuff. All right. So I had my first special relationship with the ego. And that's what he's going to, one of the things he's, so he'll be talking on those two levels. What we experience here, and keep in the back of your mind the metaphysics of it all. Okay then. Let's see what Jesus says. He says, it is impossible to use one relationship at the expense of another and not to suffer guilt. And it is equally impossible to condemn part of a relationship and find peace within it. Under the Holy Spirit's teaching, all relationships are seen as total commitments, yet they do not conflict with one another in any way. Perfect faith in each, for its ability to satisfy you completely, arises only from perfect faith in yourself. And this you cannot have while guilt remains. And there will be guilt as long as you accept the possibility and cherish it that you can make a brother into what he is not, because you would have him so. Alrighty then. So it's impossible to use one relationship at the expense of another and not to suffer guilt. So let's take it on that first level. It's impossible to use the relationship with the ego at the expense of our relationship with God and not suffer guilt. All right, and there it is. And it's equally impossible to condemn part of a relationship and find peace within it. Right? So we have relationships here in this earthly experience. And, you know, sometimes we'll say, well, I put up with that because of this. You know, I don't like that, but this and that, right? So he says it's equally impossible to condemn part of a relationship and find peace within it. We're talking about total peace, not momentary peace, right? Or happiness or gratification or whatever. Right? He's talking about finding peace within the relationship. Right? And yet, there's something about it I don't like. So your peace is not really, it's not really peace. Okay. Under the Holy Spirit's teaching, all relationships are seen as total commitments. Yet they do not conflict with one another in any way. All right? So this is under the Holy Spirit's teaching. If I bring my relationships, my earthly relationships, and of course, my relationship to the ego, to the Holy Spirit, all right, under the Holy Spirit's guidance, all relationships are seen as total commitments, and they do not conflict with one another in any way. Right? Because I can find perfect peace in each relationship. Because I'm looking for the same thing. I'm asking for the same thing all the time. And that's peace of mind. I have an active dedication to it. And I'm willing to see correctly, right? If there's some part of my relationship that I'm condemning, I can go inside and ask, how can I see this correctly? I'm willing to see it correctly. That's how the Holy Spirit gives us the ability to see that the relationships do not conflict in either way, in any way, because they're all here to help us find peace. Okay? Perfect faith in each one for its ability to satisfy you completely arises only from perfect faith in yourself. And this you cannot have while guilt remains. So we can't have perfect faith in ourselves and who we are while there's chunks of the ego floating around. Okay? We have to be very vigilant for the ego popping up and then asking for correction. You know, looking at whatever it is the ego is telling us and then asking for the correction. Then we come to have perfect faith in ourselves. We know who we are. And once that occurs, we can just give that because everyone is the same. But you cannot have it while guilt remains. And there will be guilt as long as you accept the possibility and cherish it that you can make a brother into what he is not, because you would have him so. In other words, we could make a brother into a guilty party. We can make the other into the guilty party. It's their fault. Right? So we're making him into what he is not. In other words, he is innocent as the moment he was conceived or perceived. Not perceived. Perception is for the world. Right? From the moment that God thought of us, right, that brother was innocent. Right? But we would make them guilty. Right? We'd make them what they are not. And there will be guilt as long as you do that. As long as you accept the possibility and cherish it. All righty. Paragraph 2. You have so little faith in yourself because you are willing to accept the fact that perfect love is in you. And so you seek without for what you cannot find without. I offer you my perfect faith in you in place of all your doubts. But forget not that my faith must be as perfect in all your brothers as it is in you, or it would be limited. It would be a limited gift to you. In the holy instant, we share our faith in God's Son because we recognize together that he is wholly worthy of it, and our appreciation of his worth, we cannot doubt his holiness. And in our appreciation of his worth, we cannot doubt his holiness. And so we love him. Okay. He says you're unwilling to accept the fact that perfect love is in you. I mean, if somebody were to come along and tap you on the shoulder and just say, you know, I just wanted to remind you that perfect love is in you, you would have some kind of reaction to that. All right? You know, there'd be a blush of doubt or something, you know, or a complete repudiation, you know. Let's make a joke or something, you know, a distraction. He says, you have so little faith in yourself because you're unwilling to accept the fact that perfect love is in you. And so you seek outside for what you can't find outside. So we seek outside of ourselves for perfect love. And he says, you can't find it there. It's not there. That's the ego world. He says, I offer you my perfect faith in you in place of all your doubts. So we can rest in the help of Jesus because he has perfect faith in us. He knows us now for what we are. He says, but forget not that my faith must be as perfect in all your brothers as it is in you, or it would be a limited gift to you. So he says, but remember that we're all the same here. I have perfect faith in the perfect love in everyone. He says, and if I didn't, my gift to you wouldn't be complete. All right. It would be limited. All right. In the holy instant, we share our faith in God's Son because we recognize together that he is wholly worthy of it. And in our appreciation of his worth, we cannot doubt his holiness. And so we love him. Right? We become aware of guiltlessness in that holy instant when we join with Jesus. We ask Jesus, help me. I'm willing to see the other person correctly. I'm willing to see. I'm willing to drop my judgments. I'm willing to drop the exclusion. He's not included. She's not included. You know, for whatever reason, big or small. All right? And that doesn't mean that in form that other person is going to change their ways. You know, what I like to refer to as having a road to Damascus moment. All right? They might still be the same. All right? But we are seeing them differently. We're seeing past their disguise. Right? We're seeing past the role that they've taken on in the ego thought system. And we can appreciate their worth. Right? We recognize their worth and we can appreciate it with the help of Jesus next to us. Right? and we cannot doubt their holiness. And so, therefore, we love them. Right? We can understand. Right? And everybody's movie seems to be different because that's the way the ego likes it. Right? But whatever your circumstance, no matter how despicable the other is, you can love them because you can understand. Right? You can understand their situations with Jesus next to you. Okay. And we need that. We need that inner guide. Right? We can't do it just in the ego. We can't do it by ourselves. He says, in paragraph 4, wait, I skipped paragraph 3, pardonnez-moi. Paragraph 3, all separation vanishes as holiness is shared. For holiness is power, and by sharing it, it gains in strength. If you seek for satisfaction in gratifying your needs as you perceive them, you must believe that strength comes from another, and what you gain, he loses. Someone must always lose if you perceive yourself as weak. Yet there is another interpretation of relationships that transcends the concept of loss of power completely. So if we look at relationships in the ego sense, okay, you'll seek for gratifying your needs as you perceive them. Right? We come here with a sense of lack. Something has to be filled. Something has to be given us. And then we decide what that need is, and we go get it. Or not. We stay trapped in the sadness of loss and lack of power and all that. Which is also not true, and can be looked at. Okay. He says, nor do you think that when God answers, no, once again, why do we keep skipping that paragraph? Okay. If you seek for satisfaction in gratifying your needs as you perceive them, you must believe that strength comes from another, and what you gain, he loses. So I'm perceiving myself as needing something, so I'm lacking strength, so to speak. So it must be, and it's that person, oh, they came into my life. Now I'll get what's missing from them. Okay. And, we'll take what we need, and what we gain, he loses. Because, it's really better if I don't give anything in return. So, all right. Yet there is another interpretation of relationships that transcends the concept of loss of power completely. Right? There's another interpretation of relationships, right, that will help us transcend the idea that I don't have power, I got to get it from over here. When I get it, they lose it, I have it now. All this bargaining that we do in relationships. Right? He says there's a different way. There's another interpretation that rises above that concept of loss of power completely. Right? Now we'll go to paragraph 4. You do not find it difficult to believe that when another calls on God for love, your call remains as strong. Nor do you think that when God answers him, your hope of answer is diminished. On the contrary, you are more inclined to regard his success as witness to the possibility of yours. This is because you recognize, however dimly, that God is an idea. And so your faith in him is strengthened by sharing. What you find difficult to accept is the fact that, like your Father, you are an idea. And like him, you can give yourself completely, wholly without loss, and only with gain. Herein lies peace, for here there is no conflict. All right? God is an idea, and so are you. He says you have difficulty accepting that idea, that concept that you are an idea. All right? I said, no, I'm this form. Right? I have this history. Right? He says you have difficulty accepting the fact that you are an idea also, just like your Father. Right? And like him, you can give yourself completely, without loss, and only without gain. Right? When I join in that holy instant, and I am willing to see, I'm willing to be shown the innocence of the other, right? I am giving myself completely. I'm giving myself wholly, without loss, and only with gain. I can only gain from that. I gain the knowledge of our connectedness, the knowledge of everyone's innocence, right? Rising above the form, all the silly strutting about the stages. Right? So, and he says you don't find it difficult that when God answers somebody's prayer, so to speak, all right, when God answers another's call for love, your call remains just as strong. Right? It's not diminished. We can't say, oh no, God's done for the day. He used up all his love for today. Can't get to me. He says, you know that's not true. He says, that's because you recognize, however dimly, that God is an idea. Okay? God is an idea, not a form. Right? And so your faith in him is strengthened by sharing. Right? So we all can partake in the love of God. But what you find difficult to accept is the fact that, like your Father, you are an idea. And like him, you can give yourself completely, wholly without loss and only with gain. And when we do that, he says, herein lies peace. Then we experience peace. For there is no conflict. That's when we experience total and true peace. Paragraph 5. All right. In the world of scarcity, which is here, love has no meaning, and peace is impossible. For gain and loss are both accepted, and so no one is aware that perfect love is in him. In the holy instant, you recognize the idea of love in you, and unite this idea with the mind that thought it and could not relinquish it. By holding it within itself, there is no loss. The holy instant thus becomes a lesson in how to hold all your brothers in your mind, experiencing not loss, but completion. From this it follows you can only give, and this is love. For this alone is natural and under the laws of God. In the holy instant, the laws of God prevail, and only they have meaning. The laws of this world cease to hold any meaning at all. When the Son of God accepts the laws of God as what he gladly wills, it is impossible to be bound or limited in any way. In that instant, he is free. He is as free as God would have him be. For the instant he refuses to be bound, he is not bound. Okay. It is in that holy instant when we go to that stately calm within and we join with Jesus, the symbol of who we really are. He says, you know that love is in you. Right? And that you can only give. And that's the only thing you want to do. You want to extend that love. Right? You recognize the idea of love in you and unite this idea with the mind that thought it, and he uses a capital M, mind. Right? We recognize that love is in us and all around us, and we unite with the mind that originated that. Okay? We unite with the mind of God. Okay? By holding it within itself, there is no loss. The holy instant thus becomes a lesson in how to hold all of your brothers in your mind and experience not loss, but completion. Right? And then it follows that you can only give. When we are in that holy instant, you can only give. Right? You become the channel. It extends through you. And in that instant, he says, the laws of this world have no meaning whatsoever. You know, starting with the time, right? It just disappears in that holy instant. And you more and more you become aware of the boundlessness, right? That great expanse. For the instant he refuses to be bound, he is not bound. You are as free as God would have you be. Right? And as the old joke about Carnegie Hall, right? The tourist asking the New Yorker, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And he goes, practice, practice, practice. All right? And that's what we do. We practice until we get to the Carnegie Hall of love. Right? We get to the holy instant, the major holy instant. Right? In the holy instant, paragraph 6, nothing happens that has not always been. Only the veil that has been drawn across reality is lifted. Nothing has changed, yet the awareness of changelessness comes swiftly as the veil of time is pushed aside. No one who has not yet experienced the lifting of the veil and felt himself drawn irresistibly into the light behind it can have faith in love without fear. Yet the Holy Spirit gives you this faith because he offered it to me and I accepted it. Fear not, the holy instant will be denied you, for I denied it not. And through me, the Holy Spirit gives it unto you, as you will give it. Let no need you perceive obscure your need of this, for in the holy instant you will recognize the only need the sons of God share equally. And by this recognition you will join with me in offering what is needed. Right? And what is needed is this release from the ego thought system. Okay? He says the awareness of changelessness will come to you. Right? It's a beautiful concept. Right? As the veil of time is pushed aside, and then Jesus, who has this real love of double negatives, he says, no one who has not yet experienced the lifting of the veil, right, can have faith and love without fear. Right? So unless we go to that holy instant and practice going there, right, we won't have faith and love without fear. Right? We will think that we'll be reluctant to approach love. Right? True love in the mind, because we think we'll be destroyed, we'll disappear, whatever. There'll be some fear, right? As if you are going to just disappear and never be heard of again. Right? And through me, the Holy Spirit gives it to you. He says the holy instant will not be denied you, right? Because I denied it not, right? Jesus chose the holy instant, the uniting with the mind that created love. He says, I chose that, right? I looked at the ego and I said no, and he chose that holy instant. He says, it wasn't denied me, so it's not denied to you. And through me, the Holy Spirit gives it to you. And you will give it. Right? It's very, very important. Have faith in that fact. Right? That you will become a channel of love. Right? You're not going to be channeling disembodied entities or anything. You're going to become aware of that great expanse, and you will be able to bring it with you wherever you go. And it will land and take the form that's necessary, right, in each situation. But you will be doing that. All right? It'll be coming through you. Right? And he says in paragraph 7, it is through us, right? Jesus and you. Right? It is through us that peace will come. Right? Join me in the idea of peace. For in ideas, minds can communicate. If you would give yourself as your Father gives his self, you will learn to understand selfhood. And therein is God's meaning, and therein is love's meaning understood. But remember that understanding is of the mind, and only of the mind. Knowledge is therefore of the mind, and its conditions are in the mind with it. If you were not an idea, and nothing but an idea, you could not be in full communication with all that ever was. Yet as long as you prefer to be something else, or would attempt to be nothing else and something else together, you will not remember the language of communication, which you know perfectly. Right? He says, deep down inside, you know the language of communication. You know you are in communication with your Creator. You know you are in communication with the mind that gave birth to you, so to speak. Right? He says, but as long as you vacillate, okay? He says, as long as you prefer to be something else, right? Or you attempt to be nothing else and something else together, right? We vacillate, right? You will not remember the language of communication. Right? So we need to be vigilant of when I'm choosing to be other than what I truly am. Right? When I'm choosing to believe what's going on in the ego. And then just coming to the holy instant and asking, shed some light on this for me. Help me to see it correctly. I'm willing to see it correctly. It says then gradually and more, we will remember the language of communication. It's because you have it in you. You know it perfectly. And you will communicate with your Creator, with your God. Right? He says, in the holy instant, God is remembered. Paragraph 8. And the language of communication with all your brothers is remembered with him. For communication is remembered together, as is truth. There is no exclusion in the holy instant, because the past is gone, and with it goes the whole basis for exclusion. Without its source, exclusion vanishes. And this permits your source and that of all your brothers to replace it in your awareness. God and the power of God will take their rightful place in you. You will experience the full communication of ideas with ideas. Through your ability to do this, you will learn what you must be. For you will begin to understand what your Creator is and what his creation is along with him. Okay. So this is in that holy instant, when we keep practicing going inside to the mind, he says that's where God is remembered. Right? And the language of communication with all your brothers is remembered. We will be able to communicate with all our brothers because we will see that there is no exclusion. There's only exclusion in the ego thought system. There's an us and them. There has to be, so that I can project out onto them. Right? There's always a one or the other. I got to get mine. Right? But within the holy instant, we come to learn that there's only the oneness, the communication with all the brothers. Right? He says, there is no exclusion in the holy instant, because the past is gone. Remember that the past, not only our history, but what he's mostly talking about is the past, that belief that we separated from God. Right? So that's gone. The past is gone. There is no exclusion. Right? without its source, exclusion vanishes. All right? The source is the belief in separation. And we keep separating. We keep separating. And so some, okay, you guys are okay. You guys got to stay out. There's always exclusion for one reason or another. This world is replete with examples of exclusion. You know, this is us, and that's you. You know, stay away from us. Right? And in this world, there's an or else, or we'll, you know, do away with you. And there is no peace in that. There is no peace in that. It says, without the source, without its source, exclusion vanishes. Right? So when exclusion vanishes, he says, this permits your source and that of all your brothers to replace it in your awareness. So we can replace exclusion. We can replace separation in our awareness. And we realize there is only oneness. And then God and the power of God will take their rightful place in you. Right? And you will experience full communication. The full communication of ideas with ideas. Right? You are an idea and God is an idea. Right? You will experience that full communication. And through your ability to do this, you will learn what you must be. And you will begin to understand what your Creator is and what His creation is along with Him. You will begin to understand everything, who you are, who your Creator is, what creation is all about. Okay. It's a much more peaceful and awe-inspiring and powerful place to be in the mind than running around like a shrew trying to feed desires, and in the meanwhile excluding people, places, and things, as the ego does. Okay? And then in that holy instant, that's the laws of God prevail. We understand who we are, we understand others, we understand the oneness, and we understand the only need that everyone has is to escape the ego thought system. Right? That will come to us in that holy instant. Right? And you can have this holy instant no matter what you are doing. Right? You don't need to set up special altars and special times. Although in the workbook for students, she just says, look, you have to train your mind. Right? You have to train your mind to pull it out of that ego thought system, to look at it and say, oh yeah, look, that was I'm in the ego. Can you help me? You do have to train yourself to do that. Right? And once you get used to doing that, coming into your mind, you can do that all day long, right? Until you just gently move into that place where you understand. You understand the oneness. You are aware of the awesome spaciousness that you are. Okay? And that's practicing the holy instant. All righty then. You will experience the full communication of ideas with ideas. All right? And you won't be afraid of being an idea. All right? Okay, we will leave it there for today. And once again, I thank you for this opportunity. You know, sometimes I think about doing this, and it's if you've ever studied music and played an instrument with a teacher, your teacher, especially in these days when it's easy to do, will tell you to record yourself. Right? So I thank you for this opportunity. Right? So because it helps me be a better musician. Okay. And I look forward to our next recording session. All right then, love you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.